Welcome to RE Uncut. Our daily shows are powered by Core Logic and supported by Printforce, Rockend and Realty.com.au.
Good morning and welcome to the show. We say list and last. And while that has a lot of foundation, we should never lose sight of the fact that we need both a buyer and a seller. One of the most common mistakes that I see agents make is that they discount the value of the buyer. I discussed that today with our guest, Mark Frater.
With the evolution of social media, marketing of property is no longer linear. Consumers are influenced differently. The Property Show is unique in that it empowers agents to connect with buyers and sellers through personalised content, social media and artificial intelligence. The Property Show delivers personalised, laser-focused marketing by combining new media, social media and audience targeting, and gives the agent a digital voice. See how well the Property Show works, and then let's get started telling the world about your property. See it now exclusively at Realty.com.au.
Yes, well, no wonder buyers get frustrated with us. Mark Frater is my guest this week. And we'll talk about his business as well, because Mark's doing a lot of coaching all around Australia. And I guess like we're doing now on Zoom, you got the ability to do that, Mark.
I spent many weeks in the air for many years, and of course now that's not possible. And in fact, I was just working with a new office in Victoria. 3 hours. We started 3 hours before the lockdown came in, so I would have been stranded down there. So this is obviously going to be a great way to communicate with people all over the country, and hopefully further afield as time goes on.
Yeah, okay. We've got a link for Mark too, if you want to have a quick chat to him about his training business. Hey, Mark, tell me, what are the 5 don'ts that agents do?
Okay, well, I had to cut this down from at least 10. And I took this from a friend of mine who bought a property not too long ago. And I said, well, look, tell me about the things that frustrated you. And suddenly all these things came out. So I broke this down to 5. And part of this is, again, now as we have to spend more time with people, let's make sure we're taking advantage of what we've got, which is a great opportunity. So the first don't that agents do is they don't spend enough time understanding their needs. And we talked yesterday about the 4-step picture process. The first one was building this picture with lifestyle questions. And this is where we do that, taking the time, having the questions in our head, as it would do at a listing presentation. We probably don't have to think too seriously or too quickly about where we're going with those questions, because they come into our heads quickly. But what are the buyer needs? What are those emotional questions? And let's spend the right amount of time at the beginning so that we know what we're doing down the track.
It sort of lines up with the next one too, isn't it, about listening, because, you know, we can be asking questions without really listening to those answers.
Actually, the second don't that we do is we don't genuinely listen. It's almost a rattling off half a dozen questions, and the buyer's looking, saying, I don't even know why I'm answering your questions. It's clear you're not writing any answers down. It's clear you're not going off into little side tangents with that. Talk to me a bit more about that. You know, it's almost like you're just doing it out of a necessity, but you're really not interested, genuinely interested, because you're not listening to what they're saying. So when you do take them out, and a lot more people, I was actually interesting, mate, I was with someone today who's now, even in Queensland that we can have open homes, they've actually decided not to do them, and they're only organising private inspections. And if you're going to do that, you've got to take people to property or invite them to property. It's going to suit. You can't do that if you're not genuinely listening to what they're wanting and needing.
Curious about the third one, about knowing facts. And is this to do with product knowledge?
Yeah, it's not just about the property. It's really understanding the bus stops, the recreational, the schools, the shops, what is going to be necessary from an infrastructure point of view, and not just a property point of view, that's going to build emotional connection with that potential buyer. That's really going to make, the close and the negotiating much easier, because you're putting in points that they just need and can't argue against.
Mate, the next one is one that never ceases to amaze me, and I think in the 14 years I've been doing this show, we've talked about it on a number of occasions, and that is, you go to an open home and then you don't get a call back. So why does the agent want to know my phone number and my email address if they've got no intention of following me up?
And it's not just for the follow-up. It's also the promises you make to say, okay, we may just not have what we need right now of what you're looking for, but we will keep in contact. And I think we forget very quickly, and actually probably one of the most interesting stats, and I wish I probably knew this and should do, is how much quicker are people selling now than they did 20 years ago? I mean, you know, the time it
You
took,
mean the turnover from when they buy to when they sell, yeah.
and look, we used to work on 1 in 7 or 8 or 9 years. That's come back now, especially with people who buy their first home to, you know, 2 or 3 years. In fact, a very good friend of mine, their son built a home 6 months ago and is now selling it. So it's within the first 12 months that they had this property built that they're now selling. And so we're not keeping in contact with these people, and obviously we're not building up the rapport for down the track as much as anything else. But it kind of goes nicely about keeping in contact with the next one, which is to see if anything has changed. Has their budget changed? Has their area changed? Has what they thought the vision they had in their head about what they're wanting to buy, has that now changed to become perhaps a little bit more realistic in line with what their budget can afford? And number 5 is, you know, we just don't keeping not just in contact, but we don't see if anything has genuinely changed with that person by asking those specific questions.
Because you've got to realise too, haven't we, that quite often a relationship with a buyer is going to be quite lengthy. You know, it could take time, and lots of things change.
And look, I know that's the 5 don'ts, but a bonus don't is that they don't build a genuine relationship. And very interesting, our next door neighbour 6 months ago sold through a very, very good local agent who has dominated the area over the last 5 or 6 years. Off market, she was called in to do an appraisal. She said, I've got the buyer, brought the buyer through, sold it, and made a $40,000 commission. What was very interesting was when the buyer moved in, I got to meet them and said, how was the experience? She said, when this agent called, they knew it was genuine. They knew she genuinely had a property that was going to go very, very close because of the communication and the amount of contact she had over a 6-month period. So, you know, it may have only had the one inspection in the property next door, but literally she has spent 6 months keeping in contact. And that's what she sold to the seller, that this was a genuine communication, and she made $40,000 out of it.
Yeah, indeed. So much skill goes into being a really good agent. 2 sides of it, of course. The old saying of list and you'll last. Well, you know, that may have been the case, but you've really got to have the skills of working with buyers too, because there's some very good buyers agents out there, and they're bringing a whole new skill set. Mark Frater is my guest. He'll come back again tomorrow. We'll talk about time tomorrow. Timing is everything, and make sure you don't waste it. Mark Frater back with me tomorrow. See you then, mate.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
The Daily RE Uncut Show is powered by CoreLogic and supported by Printforce, Rockend and Realty.com.au. Realty.com.au is where you will see all our shows: Real Estate Talk, The Property Show, Auction Update, and of course RE Uncut. We are the home of property.